They used to call me ugly. Plain, forgettable. A wife who didn't deserve the man on her arm. For years I believed them. I hid behind dull clothes, lowered my voice, and learned how to disappear in a room so I wouldn't embarrass Adrian. I gave up everything for him, my career, my dreams, even my confidence, while he paraded around with Celine, his perfect little mistress. And the world cheered for them while I stood in the shadows. But that night at the gala, I refused to be invisible. I remember the moment clearly. Adrian walked in with Celine clinging to him, smiling like she had already won. The cameras flashed, people whispered, and I could almost hear their pity for me, the pathetic wife at home. Then the doors opened. I stepped inside. The red dress clung to my body like it had been waiting for this night. My heels clicked against marble, and suddenly, silence swallowed the ballroom. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. Even the photographers who never cared to look at me scrambled to capture a single shot. Adrian's smirk faded. Celine stiffened at his side, and for the first time, it wasn't me who felt small. It was them. That was the night I stopped being his shadow. That was the night I became the woman everyone finally saw. Before we dive into my story, tell me, where are you watching from? Have you ever felt like you weren't enough? At the end of this story, you'll realize just how wrong that was. I have a small favor to ask. Please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel to bring voice to more people who have been let down by the ones who should have loved them. Now, let's get into my story. I still remember the first time I saw Adrian. He didn't belong to my world, not really. I was a girl from a modest background. My parents worked hard just to keep the lights on, while he came from money, the kind of wealth you could smell on someone before they even spoke. His suit looked freshly pressed, his shoes polished, his watch gleaming. I felt out of place near him, like a moth brushing against a flame. And yet, for reasons I couldn't explain, his eyes found me. I was at a friend's birthday dinner, laughing a little too loudly at some silly joke when I caught him watching me from across the table. He had this confident, polished smile, the kind that should have made me shrink into myself. But instead, he leaned forward and asked me a question. Something simple, what I did for work, what I loved. And for the first time in a long time, someone listened like I mattered. Adrian chased me after that night. That's the truth. He sent flowers to my office, he called, he texted, he made excuses to see me. I couldn't understand why. He was from a world of shiny cars, expensive suits, and rooms filled with powerful people. And me? I was just me. I wore bright dresses from thrift stores, tied my curls up in messy buns, laughed at the smallest things. I thought he was above me, out of my league, untouchable. But he kept saying the same thing. You're different, Maya. You're not like anyone else I've met. And I believed him. Our dating days felt like a dream. He took me places I had never been before, lavish restaurants where I didn't always know which fork to use, weekend getaways where I felt like Cinderella stepping into a fairy tale. But what I loved most wasn't the luxury. It was how he made me feel, special, seen. As if my loud laugh, my curls, my thrift store dresses, everything I thought made me less, were the very things that drew him in. When he asked me to marry him, I said yes without hesitation. Why wouldn't I? He was charming, successful, and he chose me out of all the women who probably dreamed of being in my place. I thought I had won the jackpot. The first couple years of marriage were bliss, truly. We were inseparable, always touching, always laughing. He brought me coffee in bed some mornings, kissed my forehead before work, and held me close like I was the most precious thing he'd ever owned. We threw small dinner parties, traveled when we could, and I thought, this is it. This is the forever people talk about, but forever has cracks you don't notice right away. It started small, harmless comments, or so I thought. Like when he said, maybe don't wear that yellow dress, love. It's a bit too bright for the dinner tonight. I laughed it off, changed into something darker. I didn't see it then, but that was the first thread unraveling. Then came the little corrections. Tie back your hair, Maya. It looks messy when it's all over the place. You laugh too loud sometimes. It's childish. People might not take us seriously. Each time I adjusted. I wanted him to be proud of me, I wanted to fit into his world, not embarrass him. So I tied my curls into sleek buns. I bought muted clothes, navy, black, beige. I learned to cover my laughter with a polite smile, and at first it seemed to make him happy. He complimented me more, held my hand at parties, introduced me as my beautiful wife. I thought, maybe this is what marriage is. Maybe it's about growing into the version of yourself your partner needs. But deep down, something was changing. I was changing. The woman who once filled rooms with laughter, who wore colors that mirrored her spirit, who embraced her messy curls like a crown, she was fading. Piece by piece, I was molding myself into the image Adrian wanted. And without realizing it, I was losing the very things that made me, me. At first, I told myself it was worth it. That's what love was supposed to be, right? Compromise. Adjustment. Sacrifice. But compromise turned into silence. Adjustment turned into shame. And sacrifice turned into disappearance. I didn't know it then, but those were the first steps into becoming the woman the world would later whisper about. The dull, quiet, ugly wife who no longer turned heads. And as much as it hurt, Adrian wasn't done with me yet. The worst was still to come. I always thought the worst thing a husband could do was stop loving his wife. But Adrian proved me wrong. At first, I didn't even realize he was cheating. The signs were there, but I was too blinded by hope to see them. Late nights at the office. Business trips that suddenly came up. The way he started pulling his phone closer whenever a message popped up. When I asked, he brushed me off with a smile. "You worry too much, Maya. I'm doing this for us, for our future," and like a fool, I believed him. But then, the whispers started. A friend from my college days pulled me aside after a dinner party. She lowered her voice, her eyes full of pity. "Maya, are you okay with Adrian spending so much time with that woman? The one from the charity board, Celine Cortez?" Celine Cortez. That was the first time I heard her name. I laughed it off, told myself people love to gossip, but in the weeks that followed, her name kept finding me. At cafes, at salons, at charity events where I showed up alone because Adrian was busy. And then one morning, there she was, splashed across the glossy pages of a magazine. Her arm hooked around Adrian's, their faces pressed close, both of them smiling like they belonged to each other. The headline screamed, "Business tycoon Adrian Blake and the stunning Celine Cortez steal the spotlight." I stared at the photo until my hands shook. That was my husband, my life. And yet the world was celebrating them like they were the perfect couple. When I confronted him, I'll never forget how calm he was. He didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He just shrugged. "Celine is exciting. You wouldn't understand." Those words cut deeper than any knife. From then on, he stopped hiding. He took her everywhere, business, galas, charity dinners, even casual lunches in broad daylight. Paparazzi followed them like shadows, and I had to endure it all, flipping through magazine covers that flaunted my husband's betrayal. But the worst day came when Celine decided to show me exactly where I stood. It was at a private fundraiser. I hadn't wanted to go. I knew Adrian would have her there. But something in me refused to stay home, refused to keep hiding. So I went, dressed as best as I could in a muted blue dress that I hoped would make me look elegant. Celine made her entrance late, as if the whole room had been waiting for her. She was beautiful, I won't lie. A woman sculpted to perfection, long black hair that fell like silk, curves wrapped in a sparkling silver gown, confidence dripping from every step she took. And of course, Adrian was at her side. They spotted me near the champagne table. Celine's lips curved into a slow, cruel smile. She whispered something in Adrian's ear and he chuckled, actually chuckled, before they walked over. "Ah, Maya," Celine purred, her voice sweet like poison. "You really are more plain in person than I expected." I froze. People nearby turned to watch. I could feel their eyes burning into me. She leaned closer, her perfume sharp, suffocating. "Adrian needs a queen," she whispered, loud enough for others to hear. "Not whatever you are." "And Adrian? My husband of 7 years?" He laughed. He laughed with her. Something inside me shattered that night. I excused myself, holding my tears until I reached the bathroom. I locked myself in a stall, pressed my back against the door, and finally let it out. The sobs ripped through me, ugly and raw. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to vanish into nothing, because wasn't that what I had already become? The magazines called her glamorous, sophisticated. They called him powerful, untouchable. And me? I was the joke, the pitiful wife who couldn't keep her husband. The shadow at the edge of every photograph. But what no one knew was this: in that bathroom stall, with my makeup ruined and my heart in pieces, something inside me shifted. For the first time in years, I wasn't just sad. I was angry. And that anger, it was the spark I didn't know I needed, because one day soon they would regret underestimating me. The breaking point came one evening, just days before the gala. Adrian walked into the living room, already dressed sharp for some dinner meeting. I had been waiting for him, building up courage to ask if we'd be going to the gala together like we used to. Part of me still hoped, still clung to the memory of the man who once kissed my forehead every morning. I asked quietly, "What time should we leave for the gala?" He stopped, looked at me like I'd just said something stupid. Then he sighed, annoyed, tugging at his cufflinks. "You're not going, Maya." My heart dropped. "What do you mean?" He didn't hesitate. He didn't soften it. "You'll embarrass me. Just stay home." Those words sliced right through me. Embarrass him. After everything I had sacrificed. After giving up my laughter, my colors, my curls, my dreams, he still saw me as nothing more than an embarrassment. I wanted to fight back. I wanted to scream. But the words stuck in my throat, trapped behind years of silence and shrinking. I just stood there, numb, watching him check his reflection in the mirror like I wasn't even in the room. When the door finally closed behind him, I crumbled. I sank to the floor, pressing my face into my hands, and sobbed until my chest hurt. My tears soaked the carpet. My breath came in gasps, and the worst part was, I couldn't even recognize myself anymore. Where was the girl who once laughed loudly? The girl who loved bright dresses and wild curls? The girl he claimed was different? She was gone, buried under his insults, his betrayal, and my own silence. That night, I saw myself clearly for the first time. I wasn't Adrian's wife. Not really. I was his shadow, his doormat, a shell of the woman I used to be, and in that clarity something inside me cracked open. I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep disappearing. For the first time I whispered to myself, no more. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I swore, right there on the floor, with tears still wet on my cheeks, that I would rise again. The next morning, I made the call that would change everything. Lila, my best friend. She had always seen through me, even when I tried to smile through the pain. She picked up on the second ring, her voice bright, familiar, grounding. "Maya," finally. "I was just thinking of you." The moment I heard her, my voice cracked. "Lila, I can't do this anymore." She went quiet, then gentle. "Tell me everything." And so I did. I told her about the magazines, about Celine, about the way Adrian laughed when Celine told me I wasn't good enough, and finally, about the gala. About how he told me to stay home because I'd embarrass him. By the end, I was crying again, but this time, Lila didn't let me sink into the tears. "Maya," she said firmly, "he's wrong. He's been wrong all along. You are not invisible. You are not ugly. You just forgot who you are. And it's time you reminded everyone, including him." Her words lit something in me. For the first time in years, I felt a spark. That's when Lila made the plan. Step by step, she would help me bring back the woman I used to be. The woman Adrian tried to erase. The woman Celine mocked. Only this time, I'd return stronger. I didn't know then exactly how far that plan would take me. I didn't know how drastically it would change everything. But what I did know was this: the Maya who sat on the floor crying, begging for scraps of love, she died that night. And the woman who would rise from her ashes, she was about to shock them all. I stared at my reflection, a stranger looking back at me. The woman in the mirror had tired eyes, a bent back, and hair that had been tied down for too long. For years I had been shrinking, folding myself smaller and smaller until I almost disappeared. But not anymore. "Up," Lila ordered, yanking me off the couch. She didn't take pity on me, not the way everyone else did. She pushed. She dragged me into the gym with its blinding lights and smell of sweat. The first day, I hated it. My lungs burned, my arms shook, and I wanted to quit. "You've been carrying pain for years," Lila said as I struggled through squats. "Time to turn it into power." So I kept going, day after day. The soreness in my muscles slowly became strength. The mirror in the gym showed me pieces of myself I thought I had lost. The curve of my waist, the spark in my eyes. Next came my hair. I sat in the salon chair, nervous, almost guilty for letting anyone touch it. Adrian had always said curls looked wild, untamed, messy. I had hidden them away under pins and ties. But when the stylist set them free, thick, soft waves spilling down my shoulders, I couldn't stop staring. For the first time in years, I felt like me. Then came makeup lessons. I fumbled with brushes, smeared too much lipstick, almost poked my eye out with eyeliner. Lila laughed so hard she nearly cried, but she never let me stop. "You're not changing who you are," she reminded me. "You're learning to show the world what it tried to bury." Confidence was the hardest part. Walking tall after years of being told to shrink wasn't easy. At first I still hunched, afraid of taking up space, afraid of being noticed. But every night Lila made me practice. Head up, shoulders back, eyes forward. Again. I walked across her living room 100 times until finally one night something shifted. My chin lifted without thinking. My steps sounded firm. I didn't feel invisible anymore. Weeks passed. Piece by piece, I rebuilt myself. And then came the dress. It hung on the rack like fire stitched into fabric, deep red silk, bold and dangerous. My hands shook when I touched it. I almost put it back, thinking, this isn't for me. But Lila shoved it into my arms. "Try it on." I slipped into the dress, heart pounding. The fabric clung to me like it had been waiting all this time. When I turned to face the mirror, my breath caught. The woman staring back wasn't plain, wasn't invisible. She was fierce, powerful, unforgettable. Tears burned my eyes. "I don't even recognize myself." "That's the point," Lila said softly, standing behind me. "You've been gone too long. But look closer, Maya. This isn't someone new. This is who you always were. Adrian just couldn't see it." I touched the fabric at my waist, the curls spilling over my shoulders, the fire in my own eyes. For the first time in years, I believed her. And in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. When I walked into that gala, the world wouldn't see Adrian's ugly wife. They'd see the woman he underestimated, the woman he would regret losing, and Adrian had no idea what was coming. The night glittered with cameras. I watched from the shadows of the hotel entrance as Adrian stepped out of his black car with Celine on his arm. They looked like royalty. His sharp tuxedo, her silver gown clinging like it was made of starlight. The press swarmed, shouting his name, begging for a smile. Adrian gave them exactly what they wanted, smug and perfect. Celine leaned close, her red lips brushing his ear. She loved the attention even more than he did. The crowd ate her up, cameras flashing like fireworks. For a moment, I almost let fear drag me back inside the car. But then I thought of all the years I had been invisible, all the times he told me to hide. No, not tonight. The ballroom doors opened. I stepped inside. Silence. Hundreds of heads turned at once. The music faltered, chatter died mid-sentence. My heels clicked against the marble floor, every step echoing like a challenge. The red dress shimmered beneath the chandeliers. My curls framed my face, wild and free. My eyes were steady, unshaken. For once, I wasn't shrinking. I was owning every inch of space I took. Whispers rose behind me, gasps. A few camera flashes went off, then more, until the room lit up in a storm of white. The photographers who had been chasing Adrian moments ago now swarmed toward me, shouting my name, desperate for angles. I had been invisible for years, Now, I was unforgettable. Adrian's face tightened. He shoved through the crowd, his hand gripping my arm harder than necessary. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed. I looked him in the eye, calm, steady, existing, the word cut sharper than any scream. He blinked, caught off guard. Celine rushed forward, her smile trembling. "Oh, how brave of you to show up," she sneered, eyes raking over me. "But let's be honest, red isn't really for everyone." No one laughed. No one even looked at her. Every flash, every whisper, every pair of eyes was still on me. Celine's smirk faltered. Adrian tried to recover, pulling her closer as the host announced his name for the evening's big speech. But when he stepped up to the stage, the crowd barely noticed. Their phones, their eyes, their whispers, all followed me. And the next morning, the headlines proved it. The woman in red, Maya Steele, stuns at Gala. Adrian's wife steals spotlight from Mistress. The real star was never Celine. I had walked into that ballroom as his forgotten wife. I left as the story no one could ignore. And Adrian had no idea. This was only the beginning. They called me the red dress revelation. The photos were everywhere. Social media, magazines, even the morning news. The mysterious beauty who outshined Celine Cortez, the wife no one saw coming. My inbox flooded. Fashion, brands wanted me in their campaigns, magazines wanted my story, designers begged me to wear their gowns. It was strange. For years I'd been invisible, treated like I didn't exist. Now, powerful people I'd only seen in glossy pages wanted me. I should have felt overwhelmed. Instead, I felt alive. Of course, Adrian noticed. The first time he showed up at my door after the gala, he had flowers in his hand, roses the kind he used to give me when we were dating. He stood there in his expensive suit, trying to look like the man I once fell in love with. "Maya," he said softly, "you look incredible." I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "You told me I'd embarrass you if I came to the gala. Do you remember that?" He flinched but forced a smile. "I was wrong. I was jealous, insecure. But seeing you that night, I realized something. You've always been the one." The audacity almost made me laugh. This was the same man who paraded Celine on his arm, who let her spit venom in my face while he laughed along. The same man who chipped away at me until I believed I was worthless. And now that the world had finally seen me, now he wanted me back. "Adrian," I said, my voice calm but sharp, "you don't get to erase what you did." He stepped closer, lowering his voice like he was letting me in on a secret. "Celine was a mistake, just noise. But you're my wife, the one who stood by me. Don't throw us away over a little hurt pride." Little hurt pride? My chest burned. He still didn't get it. He never would. I went inside and came back with a single envelope. I handed it to him without a word. He frowned, opening it. Divorce papers. The color drained from his face. "Maya, no, you can't mean this." "Oh, I mean it," I said. My voice didn't shake this time. It was steady, final. "You told me I'd embarrass you if I showed up. Well, now the only embarrassment here is you." His jaw tightened. I could see the fury hiding behind his eyes. Adrian wasn't used to losing, and he definitely wasn't used to being dismissed. But that was no longer my problem. He left without another word, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. I stood there for a long moment, breathing in the silence. For the first time in years, it wasn't suffocating. It was freedom. And as my phone buzzed again, another magazine offer, another brand wanting me, I realized something. Adrian thought I couldn't live without him. He thought I needed his name, his money, his shadow. But the truth? The moment I stepped out of his shadow, I became unstoppable, and the world was only just beginning to see me. I used to think my life ended the day Adrian broke me down. I thought his insults, his betrayal, his mistress, would define me forever. But I was wrong, because life after Adrian wasn't a tragedy, it was the beginning. I threw myself into the opportunities that came flooding in. Fashion houses called me, magazines put me on their covers, brands wanted my face, my story, my resilience. And for the first time in my life, I didn't say no. I didn't shrink. I didn't hide. I said yes. Yes to my curls, free and wild. Yes to colors that made me glow. Yes to my laugh, loud and unapologetic. Yes to the woman I always was before I let someone dim me. Months later, I found myself on a red carpet in Paris. Paris, a place I once only dreamed of. The lights flashed around me, cameras shouted my name, and I laughed, really laughed, the way I used to before I lost myself. And in that moment, I realized I was never the ugly wife. I was simply a woman whose beauty, strength, and light had been buried under someone else's shadow. Now, I was free, and the world would never forget me. She was once the wife they called ugly. Now she is the woman the world will never forget. If Maya's story touched you, if it reminded you that no one has the right to dim your light, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Because sometimes, the biggest revenge is simply becoming who you were always meant to be.